Welcome to the Crochet Show with your host, Nikki. I am so excited to be here. We're going to talk about pumpkins. Yes, 5 different ways to make a pumpkin in case you don't know how to make a pumpkin or you simply want to know a different way to make a pumpkin. We're going to talk about this first, and then we'll hop into the 5 different ways. So, crocheting a pumpkin. So let's start talking about how to crochet a pumpkin 5 different ways. The first thing we're going to talk about is crocheting a pumpkin and a few tips. So my first tip is, it doesn't matter what yarn you're using. That's an awesome tip, isn't it? Literally, it doesn't matter. I do have a recommendation. I would recommend acrylic yarn because most people use their pumpkins for decorations or something similar to that, accessory possibly, right? So especially if it's decor, I would suggest acrylic yarn because it lasts a little bit longer. Cotton can kind of break down after a while unless you add, water to it or something, but still it can kind of it can break down after a while, right? You kind of know that if you have used cotton for a while, right? Now, you could also use wool, but some people are allergic to wool, which is why I don't like recommending it. However, if you're not allergic to wool, go with wool. That's fine too. Blends are fine, but I do like acrylic. Acrylic is just this overall universal yarn, I would almost say. You can use it pretty much for almost anything, right? And I would say for a pumpkin, ideal. Most of the time, I gotta say that wool, for example, or wool blends, or sometimes even cotton is usually more expensive. So if you're just making a decor item for your home as a pumpkin, acrylic is the best way, in my opinion. You can also use polyester, but polyester is typically like fuzzy yarn or something like that, very common, or very thick or really fluffy yarn or something. Feel free to use that as well. But if you just make a normal pumpkin, go with acrylic. Otherwise, use whatever you like. Totally fine. That's the first tip I want to give you. The second tip is that it is ideal, but not always necessary. Okay, ideal, but not always necessary. Is to know that you need to make these ridges, okay? It makes the pumpkin look like a pumpkin most of the time. So in order to make these ridges, in the beginning, when I first started making them, I was like, how in the world are they making these ridges? I couldn't understand it. So it is very easy, right? You simply take a long piece of yarn that is typically the same color as your pumpkin, and then you're simply going to push your needle through. In my case here, I think I used 6 times, if I count this right. 6 times I went through, and then I lined my yarn, which you can actually see right here, right? I aligned the yarn properly so it makes a very pretty, I took the piece out, by the way, the stem, I took it out in case you're worried. Where's the stem? I took it out because it kept falling out. There you go. So you simply take a long piece of yarn that is the same color as your pumpkin and a tapestry needle, right? And then you push it through. Now, the next tip is the inside of the pumpkin, right? It can be anything you want. Technically, if it's a home decor item and you're not throwing it around, or let's say you don't have kids at home, right? You can use anything you want, pretty much. But most of the time, people use it similar to a stuffed animal, hence amigurumi, like they put stuffing inside, right? So put stuffing inside. You can use yarn leftovers if you wish. Literally, if you have a lot of yarn pieces left over, just put them in there. That's fine too. You can also turn this into something heavy. If you don't want it to move around or something, you could put beans in there, rice in there. Although be careful, rice, it can still come out of the holes, right? But maybe beans, bigger beans, right? Possibly stones if it's for the outside, but again, I don't know about it. There must, then in that case, I would probably use outdoor yarn, like certain t-shirt yarns, can go outdoors. So just something to keep in mind, right? So what are you going to put inside? It depends on where are you going to put it. Some people even add just some stones, like rocks. Stone, rocks is not the same. I guess one is bigger than the other. Anyways, little rocks you can put on the bottom, right? And the rest of it is stuffing. So it stays put. Let's say you put it outside or something. In that case, it won't move around when some wind comes about, right? There's some wind and you're worried about your pumpkin fly away. In case you're putting it outside. If it's indoor, it probably doesn't matter. I probably would not put any rocks inside or anything heavy or hard if you have kids, grandkids, possibly even animals. Possibly. So it's just something to keep in mind, right? The next tip I would like to tell you is about the stem. Now, what kind of stem can you use? Anything you want that looks like a stem. Some people like to use cinnamon sticks, right? This looks just very fancy and elegant, so some people like to use those. I prefer, because as much as I love cinnamon, for me, a cinnamon stick is too strong for my nose. I will sneeze the entire time. It's just super strong. My nose is extremely sensitive to smell. I cannot even have perfume. I don't like hairspray around me. Do not like it when my family does that. Anyways, I will sneeze. My nose is super sensitive. So I don't like using a cinnamon stick as much as I love looking at them, as much as I love using cinnamon in my food. Don't like putting it in here because it's too strong. Hence, I love going outdoors and grab a wood stick, right? Either something I found and then I cut it down, right? Like saw it down, or I literally use it for my tree and then saw a little piece of it and put it in here, right? So there's many different ways on what you can put in there. You can even put real leaves in there, or a real part from an actual pumpkin if you wish. Whatever you choose, as long as it looks like something's coming out of there that looks like, oh yeah, that's a stem of a pumpkin. And yeah, oh, it makes it, you know, the perfect pumpkin in the end. Now, my other tip is you can leave it blank. That's probably my last tip, I would say. You can leave it blank, or you can add faces on there and make it like a jack-o'-lantern. Right? Feel free to do that. Some people put stickers on there that can take off afterwards, or before, you know, put it only on for Halloween, because, you know, pumpkin season is not just Halloween time. It's also before and after, right? We have Thanksgiving, etc., etc. The fall season in general is pumpkin season, right? So you can add like stickers to them, like cut out something from a sticky paper that you have or something, or you buy it, whatever you wish. You can put it on there to make it as a jack-o'-lantern. When the time is over, Halloween is over, etc., you can just take it back off and then you have just a plain old pumpkin again. Make it fancy. Either way, I like making it temporarily, so it's not just always on there. Or if you want to make it always on there, you can like sew it on there, right? Glue it on there. You can make there's glow in the dark fabric glue that you can put on there. It lights up at night, right? And then when the fall season is still there, but Halloween is over, just turn it around, right? And then nobody sees it. Just saying, there's many different ways to add something to it, make it special. Okay. You can, of course, add decor. Someone mentioned spiders. Yes, you can add anything you wish on there. Totally fine. Now, let's hop into the 5 different parts, or 5 different ways, I should say. 5 different ways on how to crochet a pumpkin. Some of you may know 1 or 2, maybe 3. Some of them have not noticed. There are 5 different ways, possibly even more. I only focus on 5 of them because those are the 5 ones that I typically know immediately when it comes to pumpkins. You will notice there's a very high similarity to hats and beanies. You will see. Let me show you. Okay, the very first one is this one, crocheting a pumpkin from a rectangle. That is the most common way I have seen people make pumpkins. Now, that doesn't mean that's the, you know, everyone knows that one first. Typically not. But believe it or not, this guy was made from a rectangle. And so what I did is I made a piece of rectangle, right? The size doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter. You pick whatever you wish. You either follow a pattern or you pick your size, right? In this case, it's not going to be a hat. It's not a wearable, so it doesn't matter, right? And also depends on how much you squeeze your yarn around, and that is how the pumpkin is going to look like. If you pull it a lot, like you're going to squish it more, right? If you don't pull a lot, it stays taller, right? Just something to keep in mind. That's actually another tip I should have mentioned. But anyways, this guy was made from a rectangle. So here's another beautiful picture with my stick that I told you I lost or took out better. So that is this one. And then this one was also made from a rectangle, but I should say it's a little bit of slant to it, because you can see this is a spiral one, which means that the rectangle is not straight. It was it a parallelogram? I cannot pronounce that word. Anyways, it was kind of slanted, right? You have two lines that are parallel to each other, two that are slanted. Therefore, when you sew together, the lines become spirally and you have a spiral pumpkin. But technically, it's sewn together the same way, right? You fold it up, right? You fold up the rectangle. So pretend my hands are a rectangle, right? You fold it up, you sew it up here, like with the mattress stitch, the whip stitch, whatever you like, right? Doesn't matter. I prefer the mattress stitch because then you can't see the seam. So once it's like a cylinder, right? Once it's a cylinder, you will use the basting stitch on one side. You sew it all the way around like you would for a hat, and pull, right? And turn it around, and then you stuff it with whatever you want to stuff it with. And then you do the same thing again with the basting stitch on the other side, pull, then you have it as a, let's call it a ball, a pumpkin ball. And then all you have to do is you do your lines, right? Your ridges with your yarn by sewing it through, right? Just keeping in mind, the more you pull, the flatter the pumpkin. If you don't pull too much, it's becoming a little bit taller, right? Depending on how your rectangle was made, of course. So that is number one, made from a rectangle, super easy. There's no increases, no decreases, nothing. Super easy, and anyone can make a rectangle. What stitch can you use? Any you wish. This one happened to be Tunisian. This one right here is single crochet. A lot of people prefer tighter stitches, so just something to keep in mind, right? So now the next one is similar to what I just talked about, and that is a pumpkin made from a cylinder. So in this case, instead of making it first into a rectangle and then sewing it or seaming it up to make it into a cylinder, you can start and a circle, and then you work your way around and to have a cylinder, right? And then you just do the rest of it like I just mentioned, basting stitch on the top and bottom, but before you do the last side of it, you stuff it up, right? So exactly the same way as a rectangle, just that you are, let's say, missing or skipping a part, which is the seaming from a rectangle to a cylinder. You already have a cylinder, so you don't have to do that part, right? Which means you're eliminating the seam. In case you're worried about a seam, that's another great way. In that case, you also don't need to do any slip stitches. Nobody's gonna see if the edges are crooked or some kind of way. It really doesn't matter. No increases or decreases in this one either. It is very straightforward. Love that one. So you just simply start with a chain. You can even do the foundation crochet, chainless foundation crochet, and then just go around and rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds. When you're done, you do the rest of it as I just mentioned. Super fun. I personally do not have one of those patterns, but I should do that soon. Anyways, let's hop into number 3. Number 3 is a pumpkin from the top down. So when I say top down, you would be like, Nikki, it's a pumpkin. You can literally turn it upside down, whatever you wish. Correct. The reason why I call it top down is because I'm referring to it like similar to a beanie, right? You're starting from a circle and you're increasing, then you're elongating, and then you're either basting it up, like basting stitch, right, on the end, and so that you make it into a circle, into a ball again. Or you actually make it into a beanie. You can do that too. There's pumpkin beanies, right? So top down, in that case, even if you could flip it the other way around, for me, a top down pumpkin would be similar to a beanie, where you start from a circle, from a magic ring if you wish, and you increase it, the circle is increased, and then you extend it, right, to make it into a 3D object. So in this case, I actually have several of them, several pumpkin patterns that I use this technique for. So one of them is this one, which is the little pumpkin earrings, the 3D pumpkin earrings, right? Then I have this guy, which is a crochet pumpkin that is a stress ball. There you go. A stress ball. Yeah, so that means I actually made it into a ball. And in this case, I actually did not do the ridges. because it's a stress ball. You're going to squeeze it however you wish. In fact, there is a balloon inside with flour. So it really didn't need any ridges. In fact, if you would have poked something through it, you would have flour all over and it wouldn't have been a stress ball. So it didn't make the ridges, but you can see I turned it into jack-o'-lantern. So, and then we have this guy, which is a secret pumpkin tissue box cover. The reason why I called it a secret is because once you add this guy to it, the top, right, the stem, it will look like this and nobody will know it's a tissue box cover, right? So this actually has it inside. It's very fluffy and everything. It's really fun. So that's another one that I made. And here's one more that I used, a circle, literally a circle, right? This is not the cylinder one, but I used a circle. I made it into a ball type of thing. And then I did the ridges and I turned it into the striped pumpkin. The reason why I striped is because I used yarn that was striped. Variegated yarn. So there you go. So that is literally 3 different ways to make a pumpkin. Okay, now we have 2 more to go. Let's see. Do you know the other 2? I wonder if you do. So number 4 is a pumpkin from the bottom up. So you would be like, wait a second, we just did the top down, which could be a bottom up. Yes, but again, I'm referring to the way how a hat would be made, right? So in this case, I would start similar or the same. Either you start with a rectangle on the bottom if it's turning into a hat, right, making it seamed, and then you work your way up so it looks like a hat. I'll show you one in a second. Or you start with a cylinder type of thing. That means you start with a circle, you work your way up, and then you either decrease it or something like that, right? This is the exact same way. And bottom up just means I'm referring to a hat version. So here is a hat that I made from the bottom up. That means I made first, obviously, the rectangle, the long rectangle, which is the brim of the hat, right? And then I worked my way up, which was almost like cylinder-like, and then I seamed it up on the top. Now, obviously, this is not an official pumpkin. It's a hat that is supposed to resemble a pumpkin with spiders on it and jack-o'-lantern face. But you get the idea, right? There's many different ways to make a pumpkin. You can do it from the bottom up, where you start from literally a cylinder and then you decrease it. Similar to a beanie, but from the bottom up. Make sense? Right? In this case, I didn't decrease on the top. I just sewed it up so it looks like a hat that has 2 pieces coming out on the side, right? Make it really cute with the pumpkins. So with the spider pom-pom on the top, right? Super cute, super fun. Now there's one more way to make a pumpkin. You'll be like, I think you've went through all of them. Well, I feel like there could be even more than just 5. I'm just going to focus on 5. Here's number 5. Number 5 is making a pumpkin flat. So instead of making it 3D, we're making it flat. So what do I mean by that? So think of it as a circle that has maybe a little ridge on one or both sides, right, on top of each other, right, kind of like parallel, right? It's like a little ridge. So let's say you're making a single crochet circle. At the very last circle that you go around, you can literally just make one of them like a slip stitch, like that are across from each other. So let me show you an example. Here's an example that I used. I didn't make the ridge, oopsie, both hands, wrong hand. Right here, you can see that I only did the ridge on the part where the stem comes out, and I made the stem green, right? The other side doesn't have it, although I could have made that. So when I say ridge, I'm talking about the thing that looks like an apple kind of thing, just that it's orange, right? So it's like a pumpkin sliced in half, if you wish to call it that way. So this is a flat pumpkin. Now, you don't have to make earrings as a pumpkin. You can make coasters, you can make a washcloth or dishcloth or a decor for your wall hanging, etc., etc. Many different ways to make a flat pumpkin. So this is just one way that you can use to make a flat pumpkin. So that was 5 different ways on how to make a pumpkin. I would love to know which one are you going to try. Are you going to try any of the patterns I mentioned? All the links are in the description. There's one link there. Click there, scroll down and explore. Everything is listed right there. I hope you enjoy that. I'm going to see you guys here next week. Am I going to see you here next week? Because I'm going to talk about something more. More crochet tips and tricks and patterns and tutorials all for me. And I hope you have a beautiful Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. See you later. Bye.